Hey everybody, welcome to Rants by Michaela. So yesterday, in case you guys missed the point of what my rant was about, um, the point that I was getting at is that bullets have no bias. They're not going to look at you and say you are too light-skinned or too privileged to be shot. The Texas shooter who targeted all of the black shoppers at that grocery store, he targeted a woman who looked more light-skinned than I do. And I am very tan right now as a result of living in the desert. But he targeted a young woman who was more light-skinned than I am. Because at the end of the day, he still recognized her as being African-American. That shooter in Uvalde, despite the fact that that's a predominantly Latino community, and the shooter is also Latino, when you look at one of the girls that he shot, she is as white as any other white girl. So when people are sitting up there trying to roast you, trying to say whether you're too dark skinned or too light skinned, and because you're light skinned you can pass as white, and you're so white that you're privileged that you'll never know what it's like to be a black person, at the end of the day, when faced with a loaded weapon that's aiming at you, what's the difference? And yeah, I did take that line off The Departed. Jack Nicholson said, people always want to ask if you're a cop or a criminal. When you're facing a loaded gun, what's the difference? There really is no difference. And neither one of these shooters discriminated against light skin or dark skin, and that's what makes colorism so senseless. But let me tell you what I noticed after doing a little bit of research on this supposed shooter. You've got two narratives going on. On one narrative, he was a lone wolf, and he was bullied by other kids in school. This made him antisocial. The only person that he really did socialize with was someone that he used to play on the Xbox with a lot of times. Because he was bullied so much in school, he decided to leave school, so he didn't really interact with said student that much, except for when he had an Xbox invitation to play a game. And then there's another person that supposedly he was talking to in Germany, only on social media though. Never really met this person in person. His boss said that he would come to work at Wendy's, not really socialize with his other coworkers. He came, he did his work, he got his paycheck, and he went home. Something that a lot of us do. You know I socialize a lot with some of my coworkers, but I know some people that just come, do their work, collect their check, and go home. They're not really trying to be bothered with anything else. That doesn't make them an active shooter. So they're trying to display this narrative of the shooter was a lone wolf, somebody who was lonely, somebody who was bullied all the time, and that's what created the psychosis that made him want to go and shoot up a school. Then there's another narrative that this kid who got his little 15 minutes of fame on television ended up saying, which is that this kid was, yes, a lone wolf, but he was not bullied. He was a bully. He would go and try to roast people and wouldn't get the result that he wanted. You know, kind of like the kid who tried to roast my son because that's her favorite pastime. And he also said, too, that as far as he knows, the active shooter liked to kill little animals. I don't know if that's something that he Googled as consistent behavior with the serial killer, but that's what he said. And he said he liked to go to the park where a lot of people were hanging out at and pick a fight with people. Then I'm finding out that he was on social media telling people what he was going to do before the shooting. And then he would say things like, God, I wish I could just shoot my grandmother. I just want to shoot my grandmother. And then turn around later on and after he shot his grandmother, went online and told people, I shot my grandmother. Whether he was bullied or whether he was the bully, and with all of the information that I'm seeing online from social media, it sounds like this guy was doing a lot of attention-seeking behavior. He was somebody who really wanted attention for something or other. One of the things that I know probably did hurt him, whether he was the bully, whether he was bullied and just retaliating against the people who used to bully him. Because I don't know somebody who's bad at roasting trying to go and roast somebody else unless they're trying to get back at them for what they did to him, you know. One of the things that I do know is consistent with all of this behavior is disrespect. Too many times I see on TikTok as parents brag about how they're the ones who raised this little asshole. Too many times I see on TikTok and on social media how people say things like, fuck them kids, these kids are little assholes, they get on my nerves, da 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 da. My cousin used to always say that her son was bad. He was 2 years old, he was in the terrible twos. Nothing about that made him bad. Too many times I see parents disrespecting and abusing their own children, whether it's verbal abuse or physical abuse. Then the children go to school and they abuse their peers. And they have absolutely no consideration for what that does to someone's psychosis. When are we going to bring respect and morals back? At the end of the day, I don't care if somebody was a loner. Some people are loners because they can't handle the amount of disrespect that is just so normal in the world anymore. I know I really have to teach my son how to have comebacks against people who enjoy having roasting sessions or who enjoy clowning. My mother hated clowning. She hated people laughing at her expense. But when she confronted people about the fact that she did not like being clowned on, their response was, oh, get over it. Everybody does it. Like, oh, you're so sensitive. God, I can't even joke with you. How about, you know what, I apologize. I didn't know it was going to affect you like that. How about that? That seems like that's more respectful, considerate, and makes more sense to let somebody else know that you care about their feelings, other than saying, oh, well, get over it. You're sensitive. God, you can't even take a joke. How about, instead of trying to figure out whether he was the bully or whether he was the one being bullied, I personally think, based off of everything I've heard, what I personally think is that this guy engaged in attention-seeking behavior. I think he was bullied at school and people used to roast him unnecessarily, supposedly for the way that he dressed and his family's financial situation. And apparently his grandmother was a teacher who used to work at that school, and teachers don't really get paid that much money. I think that people roasted him all the time without being considerate of his feelings. He tried to clap back but wasn't very good at it, which made him get made fun of even more. He tried to retaliate against the people who had bullied him in school by picking fights with them in the park until it got to the point where he just couldn't stand being around those people anymore. I think he went crazy. And then I think he tried to show people how much of a badass he could be by purchasing guns right after he turned 18 and deciding to go and shoot up a school. I'm going, oh, you guys think that I'm weak. You guys think that I'm a punk. You guys think that I'm a bitch. I'll show you. I'll get back at all of you for what you guys did to me. And what he did was not very thoroughly planned out at all. It was just a random bunch of BS that turned into the death of 21 people. But I think that when you grow up in a small town in the 21st century, where respect is no longer a common thing and it's not fashionable, that this is the result that you get. I'm not saying what he did was justified at all. I'm saying pay attention to the way that you are treating other people affects their psychological situation. Because we need to bring respect back. At the end of the day, every single time we've had a school shooter since Columbine, or an active shooter since Columbine, it was always the person that was disrespected in bulk. And no one took into consideration their feelings. I'm not saying we should always play the mental health card. I do acknowledge and agree that a lot of people are evil. But let's accept some accountability for our role in what made them evil in the first place. Only then, when we accept our part in it and make some change to our behavior so that we can show other people more respect, will we see less and less of these shootings. Because I'm in favor of gun control. I really am. I'm in favor of the 10-year background check and the 3-day waiting period before you can get a gun. But this kid was 18 years old. Nothing was going to pop up on his 10-year background check. He purchased a gun on May 16th and then another one on May 20th. He waited 4 days in between buying both rifles before he decided to shoot up that school. So to hell with the 3-day waiting period. To hell with the 10-year background check. His ability to access those weapons so easily is not truly the reason behind those school shootings. I'm not going to write to my senator about trying to create more gun control and more legislation to stop people from being able to get a gun. I want respect to come back so that we can go back to the days where everybody could have a gun and you still never had to worry about a school shooting. Anyway, that's my rant. You guys have a good one.